So today's map is a remake of gmofreven's map City. You can see that in the blurred background right there. I'm going to take you through the steps that I go through when remaking a map. So we're going to go through that. I'm going to go ahead and remove the title and the blur, and we're going to hide some of these layers here real quick. And I'm going to go over my checklist. Whenever I'm working on any kind of map, whether I'm making a brand new map from the ground up, or if I'm remaking a map, I generally try to have some kind of checklist or some kind of pre-planning. Now, a city is such a big endeavor, whether you're making one from scratch or remaking one, because it's such a large endeavor, it's always good to do a little bit of pre-planning. So the pre-planning includes a little checklist that I go through when I'm putting together the map. So the first step is we're going to organize the right layer panel that's right over here. We're going to determine the scale via the population. So how big are the stamps are going to be? What's going to be is determining that is how big is the city that we're making. 3, we're going to add terrain. We're going to place the walls. We're going to add a centerpiece, create the main road, the districts, branching roads. We're going to add farms and crops. And we're also going to apply light and shadow in that order. Now, there's an important thing that I want to mention when we are doing each one of these steps. There's an important rule that I have that's really helpful with any kind of map that you're making. It doesn't matter if it's a world map, parchment map, whatever it might be, but I have this iron rule of contrast. And wherever I can apply this iron rule to any step that is applicable that I had in my checklist there, that is going to be helpful. The iron rule is really simple. It's all about contrasts. Examples are water versus land, depth versus height, nature versus structure, big versus small, light versus dark. These contrasts are what's going to help to make the viewer or the person who's looking at the map, those contrasts are going to pop out. And so for every step that we can find to make it applicable for this rule, we'll do that. So just kind of keep in mind the rule of contrast is ironclad. You want to apply this to every rule that you can. Hey, first time chatter, pick snap. Good evening. Glad that you are here, by the way. Let's go back to our checklist here. We're going to do step 1, which is organize that right layer panel over here. The reason why this is important, especially when you're remaking a map, is because you might have an older map that predates 2.0. That means you didn't make the map in 2.0 editor, you made it in the 1.0 editor. And what might happen in that conversion, converting or updating from the port to 1 to Inkarnate 2.0, you might notice that you might not be able to select some text. You might notice some things missing. That's not a problem here. We're going to direct you over to the right panel here. And I'm going to show you how to organize this so that things make sense. For starters, some of you might notice that your text on your map is unselectable. You might want to check to see if there's an object layer 2 with that text. This is going to be helpful for you when you're like, well, wait a minute, why can't I select these things? They might be on separate object layers, so kind of keep an eye out for that. The other thing that we might want to do with the right layer panel is we want to organize it, right? We've kind of figured out where our text might be missing, where our stamps might be missing on separate layers. What about the organizational process? What's going to be helpful is to label things and to put things in certain layers so that it's easier for you to both navigate around the map as well as being able to find things easily. So let's go ahead and do that first. I noticed that there are 2 object layers and then another object layer here. It's clear that this was made with 1.0 and then it upgraded to 2.0. I'm going to go ahead and just take all 3 of these groups right here, right click, and I'm going to move them to layer called object layer 1. So now all of those objects will be moved to here. So now I have all of my objects on this layer. That's great. I'm going to go ahead and delete this layer, or I can bring it down below. Object layer 1. I'm going to rename this as city. And I'm going to rename this as terrain. Now, ordering is important because your terrain is going to be underneath where the city is built, right? Your city layer would not be below the terrain. That wouldn't make any sense. Structures, buildings, they all sit on top of the terrain. So make sure that your ordering is correct. So we have terrain, and then we have our city here as well. And I'm going to take every single thing that I have here. Just going to select everything. I'm going to make it one group. I'm just going to call it city. and now I'll be able to move it around as need be. But first, what I'll do is I'll just go ahead and hide that for now. We're going to continue organizing. Let's turn off all of these filters. I don't need them for now, so I'll just kind of like use the eyeball to hide these and to kind of turn them off for now. All they're going to do is probably cause a little bit more strain on my resources on my device or the internet. So there's no need to have those filters on for the time being. So now we've kind of gotten most things organized. We've got that city, we've got the terrain. Now it's very clear that we have these two object layers. Now we want to scale things a little bit. So let's go back to our notes. I'm going to go over back to my checklist here, and we've done check 1. We've organized the right layer panel. Let's determine scale or population. The way that I kind of do this is not complex. There's a population guide that I've kind of created right here. In the chat, there is a pinned link at the top. This is the link to this population calculator that I've created. I'm going to zoom in and just kind of explain this just a little bit to kind of give you an idea on how to set a population for whatever city that you're making. gmofreven's map had about 200 plus buildings on it. And so I went ahead and used this population calculator to kind of determine how big that population of that city was. The first step is that you want to take a singular building and assign it an approximate estimate. Okay, approximates are important because some residencies might have only 2 occupants, like a married couple with no kids, an elderly couple, while another structure might have up to 10 or 12 occupants. So there's a reason why those estimates exist. I usually go with a lower estimate and a higher estimate. So 2 to 10 occupants per small building. So then that means you're just going to use some simple math here. If you have 4 buildings in a block, that means there's going to be up to 8 to 40 different residents within that block right there. Okay, so all it is that you're taking whatever estimate is. If it's the low estimate, it's 8. If it's the high estimate of 10, then this equals 40. My recommendation when you do set these is make sure that they're even numbers instead of odd numbers, because the math is a little bit more complex. If you stick with even numbers, it'll probably be a little bit easier for you when you're putting those together. So finally, let's go ahead and just take 4 blocks that we put together, and we can deduce that the low estimate is 32 occupants per those 4 blocks, or 160 in the high estimate. So how would I translate that into how many that I would need? If you wanted to create like a village that was in between 25 and 100, then you would need to have 10 blocks, or you would need to have 2 blocks plus 2 houses, right? So in other words, this calculator is going to help you out. So the way that you do it is you divide whatever the population you want by whatever the estimate number that you're using. The high number here is 10. So you just simply need to take 100 and divide it by 10. And that's going to equal 10 of these buildings right here. So you're kind of getting an understanding how the population calculator works here. Now, if you wanted something large like a city, then that means you're going to have way more houses and blocks. And this is going to play an important part in scale, because the more buildings you have, the smaller the building's scale is going to become. They're going to get smaller. So this is going to play a huge role. So a large city means you're going to have to drop the size of the stamps, while a small village that only has maybe 25 to 100 buildings or people in it will only have maybe 10 houses or maybe just a couple blocks. Okay, so it's kind of important to remember that your population plays a huge role in what you're going to determine as scale on top of other things. I'm going to go ahead and turn that off. Remember, the guide for that is up here, and this is something that you should use if you're not good at making estimates about your population, or you just want something to help you out. Because over here in the chat, someone mentioned that they go ahead and have their own and they just throw down what looks good, and that works too. So don't be discouraged. If this is too much, don't worry about it. Just throw down what you think works. But if you want something a little bit closer, try using the population calculator. It will be helpful to you. So what I want to decide is just how big the city is. There was about 200 plus buildings in gmofreven's thing. I think we'll probably go with a little bit more, because they had mentioned to me that it was technically a very large city. So we probably want to go with something larger. So we'll probably go with something closer to around I'd say about 10,000 instead of the 2,000 plus that would be if we use the population calculator and with the original amount of houses that were on the original map. So we're going to bump the epicness by adding more buildings and then therefore dropping the scale of the buildings so the map all fit. So that's going to be important. I'll go ahead and turn that off. We'll go back to our checklist. So about 10K occupants is what we're going to do. So that will help to determine that scale. So now that we've determined that, we can move on to that next step, which is adding the terrain. And the way that I add terrain, and this is going to be super important, is we want to remember this rule of contrast right here. Don't forget about this rule of contrast. The rule is, oopsie, let me go ahead and hide the checklist right here. My mistake, there we go. I keep pressing the wrong one, so it's absolutely hilarious. Because we're making terrain, I already see some contrasts in these rules of contrast. Water versus land, depth versus height, nature versus structure. All of those things are already going to be on the map when we create them. So our first one is water versus land. People need to have a water source of some kind, whether it's for travel, fishing, a water source for drinking, for defense, whatever it might be. Water and land are a great contrast. And we have some options. We can create a stream. We could have the city be on a lake island, a rather large lake island. We could put it on an island on the coast. We could put it on a river island. We could put it along a river bank. Whatever it might be, we should throw in some water so that that will contrast with the land. I'm privy personally to both being alongside a river or being on a lake island. I think both sound quite fun. So why don't we go ahead and do that? I'll go ahead and turn off the rule of contrast here. And we're going to start with that. I'm also going to clear the palette here as well. Let's go ahead and go with the foreground layer. This is called that mask shape right here. I'm just going to go ahead and go fill. And what it's going to do is going to fill the whole thing. So you make sure that you're set to land tool. And we're just going to go to fill. It's going to fill in the entire thing with the add mode of the mask tool. So we're going to start there. I'm also just going to paint some green grass on the whole thing like this. We're just going to go fill that up. Now we have grass on the whole thing. And then we're going to use the subtract mode to create our water source. Now, if it's a river, then I would just use it to create this simple band like this that's going to represent water. Or if it was going to be a lake, then I would create the shoreline and then the islands close to it, so that way you have some contrast. You have both land and water. I personally am kind of down for a lake island because I think in previous streams we've used rivers a lot. So let's not go down that. Let's go ahead and do that instead. I'm going to go over real quickly. I'm going to choose a water texture. I'm going to make sure that it's set to my background layer. I'm going to go fill, go back to the land tool, choose that circle brush, make sure it's set to subtract, and notice carefully that when I do the subtract, you have blue water underneath. So that looks good. The next step I also want to do is I think I'm going to turn off the mask effects for now. If you have a lower end machine, you're going to notice that the land mask effects kind of create some lag. So to kind of fix that, you're going to go over the right layer panel, go hover over where it says that land shape mask, right click land style. Right here at the top, you're going to disable the land style effects. So that will be off for now. We can apply more of those later, but for now, let's start with that. So now I'm going to use the subtract mode to remove a bunch of the land and create the shore, and then to create some kind of island. So first, I'll just create the shore. And to have a little bit of a shoreline, I'll make sure there's a little bit like this. I'll go ahead and remove the rest like this. And you'll notice that I'm doing a diagonal for a reason. I want to mention this is important because it's, again, that contrast. Notice that you have this 90 here. But if you put in a little bit of a diagonal in here, that'll break up these 90-degree angles a little bit. So a little bit of a diagonal in the land will look good. I'm going to go back to add, and then I'm going to create my island. I'm going to bring the brush size down, and I'm just going to go ahead and create this island just like this. And I'm going to kind of have it match a little bit against here, like this. Then I can go to my fill right here, where this should be a little bucket right here. I'm going to fill in that space. Whenever you're creating a landmass, you create the outline first and then use that fill bucket to fill it up like this. So that's a good start. Now that I've kind of done that, I'm going to kind of fill out the shape a little bit more details besides just be this oblong looking shape. So let's go like this, kind of build in some more shapes, fill it out a little bit more, make it more interesting. Let's go and push this a little bit more this way. That looks good. So now I have my land masses here. Now we want to, what's that next step? We've got land versus water. What about height versus depth? How is it that I'm going to show that this isn't just a flat area? Do I need to use cliffs? Am I going to be using shadows to create height? How do I create contrast using height and depth? And the way to do this is we're going to start by using cliffs. I'm going to go over to the line tool. You're going to switch over to your stamps, go over to your wall or to your catalog here. I personally do not care for much of the cliffs in this style. This is just a personal preference. You can use whatever cliff that you want, but I personally prefer the hills from the fantasy battle maps. I think those look really nice and they're really helpful because they help to deal with slope. And I'll show you how that works. So let's go to hill. You're going to notice that there's two of them, a craggy hill and a rocky hill. And I'm going to use the craggy hill for softer inclines or softer slopes. And then I'm going to use this rocky hill for a little bit more depth, going a little bit closer to 90 degrees going upward in their slope instead of this gentle slope that goes down. So let's start with this first. And I'm just going to use a mouse or a pen. You can use whichever one is easier for you. If you have a pen, it might be easier for you to just switch over to the free draw. If you're using a mouse, you're going to find that using the pen is a bit easier. So you can go like this and just, we're going to create a little bit of an incline right along here like this. If you notice that the direction is facing the wrong way, you can go over to the stroke, flip the stroke vertically. You notice how it's facing the wrong way. You can go ahead and just go flip vertically and you can flip it just like that. Now, because I have an island right here, I'm not going to use the line tool to create my hills. I'm going to use the shape tool, but I am going to use the same hills and I'll use a pen. This time I'm going to use a mouse instead of a pen. I'm going to go like this. And it's okay if your lines are fairly straight, but just know that if you want more curvature, you need to do more nodes. And what a node is that little dot that you see that you're creating. So I'm going to create these nodes here. Go just all around the island. And we're going to create multiple levels. The way that you can create interesting terrain is by having multiple levels. Don't just have one cliff, have multiple cliffs. So I'll go ahead and add mode like this. And you notice that I have this first step that kind of makes it look like it's popping up a little bit. And then I'm probably going to want to create another one. Now, when you're doing, if you want to create realistic or more realistic, I wouldn't say realistic, but more believable. The trick isn't necessarily to create something to be realistic. You want to create it to be believable. And the way that you create something being believable is by adding a little bit of realism to it. That doesn't mean that it has to be 100% real. It means it needs to be believable. And one of the ways that we're going to apply now contrast to this next step is by not having the cliffs all be the exact same shape. So if you wanted to, you could just copy and paste and just kind of add them in here like this, copy and paste like this to kind of get these varying heights. But what I think is more interesting is adding some variation. And the way that I go about doing this is that I won't have them be all the exact same shape. Let me give you an example. I might decide that I want to have this neck shape stop right there and leave that spot open. So that's going to be a little bit lower in elevation, that spot on the left. While on the right, you're going to have a higher elevation. And what I'll do is I won't go all the way into here. How about I just go a little bit, well, actually, let's do that. Let's go all the way to here. I'm going to go plus, and then there's another piece that goes up there. And I'm going to do it again. This time I'll have it stop here, and let's have it maybe go up like this a little bit, changing the shape again. And you'll notice that this is creating contrasting shapes, which is going to make it look more interesting. So I go plus, there's another shape there. And these can also represent tiers in the city, right? At the lowest part might be where some slums and residential is. That middle tier right here might be the districts where you have your infrastructure and all your other districts, while up here might be an elite district or a temple district, whatever it might be. Notice here that the cliff is facing the wrong way. Remember I mentioned flip the stroke vertically, and then you have that step there. And I'm going to do the same thing over here. I want to create some varying height to it. Why don't I copy and paste this exact same piece, but this time I'm going to switch over to my rocky cliff here. I'm going to flip, and then this, to create some extra depth and height here, I'll go ahead and create this high cliff, or this rocky hill right here, and that has some extra darker segments inside of there, and that again will create this sense of contrast, right? Those darker sections in this rocky hill create contrast, making it look like it's higher up, right? These other hills look a little bit different in slope. I'll go ahead and flip that again. And then why don't we create one more for the focal point? That means where it's going to be a castle or a cathedral. So let's go ahead and create one more. I'm going to use that rocky cliff. Oopsie, undo that real quick. Got that rocky cliff. And we're going to create a POI. Let's create one just in this corner right here. Oopsie, let's make it a little bit smaller. And maybe we can create multiple of them. Like maybe there's one right here. Plus, and then let's put another one over here. So one can be like maybe a temple. The other one can maybe be for either a castle. We'll go add. And just to change it up, I'll go ahead and just make this a little bit smaller. And what's nice about these is you can rotate them and move them around where you see fit, right? So just go ahead and push this up through here. I like that there. I like that there. That looks good. Okay, let's go ahead and create another cliff. But we're going to, this other hill right here. I'm just going to use my pen this time. Oopsie, let's go ahead and use the drawing here. Let's go one here like this. Oops, let's go switch it to hill. And let's flip it, facing the right way. And then let's do another one right here like this. There we go. Okay. All right, so we've kind of used contrast to show varying heights. We've got our lake island right here, and then we have our shore here as well. So now we have our kind of a solid terrain set up on where we can place things. So knowing where the terrain is going to be super helpful here. I'm going to go back to my city here. Go ahead and show this real quick so that I can see it. That looks good. I'm going to go ahead and select my city group. Okay, did my terrain. Oopsie, did I accidentally move to the wrong layer? I probably did. Let me just double check that real quick. And if this mistakes happen, that's okay. Let's go ahead and see where, nope, the terrain did not show up in those. So it's probably in my, is it in my city? Where did all my terrain go? Oh, I got it in the wrong, there it is right there. Cool. Notice how I put this in the wrong layer. I'm so glad I made this mistake. This is perfect. Then I can go right here like this. I've got these things selected, and I'm just going to go move to terrain like that. It gets moved to terrain, and there it is. So, and you didn't have to copy, paste, or move anything. So super easy when you put it together like that. So now I'm going to go and just scale this down a little bit. And you're going to see just how much the scale changes when you create an epic city, right? Once I started scaling this, you kind of see the difference. Now, if you want, you can rescale the map to be bigger or smaller if you wish, but I just want to give you a general idea on just how much the scale plays a role. All right, so you kind of get that idea. Okay, I think most of the terrain is done. We're not going to do any more details. Any details yet. So let's just go ahead back to terrain. I'm going to go ahead and make sure that all of the hills are facing the right way. Everything looks like it's facing, oh, this one's facing the wrong way. We'll flip that. That looks good. Let me just make sure that everything is facing the right way. That one's facing the wrong way, of course. There we go. That looks good. Okay. Let's go ahead and take that city. And I'm just going to go ahead and hide that. There we go. That looks good. Let's go back to our notes real quick. We're going to go back to our checklist. So we already kind of have a bit of our terrain already set up, right? And so the next step is once you've established the terrain, now you can start placing the walls, and the walls are going to be the boundaries of the city. right? It's going to be like the frame that frames the city. So we need to put down a series of walls. And when you're placing down your walls, you're going to factor in the terrain, right? And what also comes with walls is going to be things like wall towers. You're also going to have a gate houses. What are the entrance? How do people get in and out? So we're going to have to apply all of those things here. Okay, let's get started here. Sorry about that. Okay, let's go ahead and remove this real quick. I'm going to go ahead and hide this. This looks good. I'm going to bring that city back real quick. And we're going to try to use some of the city here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to find out which one of these has the walls. And I'll show you how we're going to transform this real quick. I'm trying to remember which one of these has the walls. Oh, those are our cliffs. Ooh. You know what'll be helpful? Let's just type in walls. No, it's not going to work. One of these groups has those walls. Let's type in walls. Let's see if I can find them. Nope. Just going to take a moment to find them. Not in there either. Where did those walls go? Oh, for some reason I cannot find. Oh, there we are. These are the walls right here. Perfect. Okay, I just want to take a look at the wall piece so that I can see which wall was used. Cool. Oh, look at this Tetris style. Definitely before 2.0 with the line and shape tool, right? Cool. All right. All right. Now I just want to make sure that I'm using a lot of the similar stamps. I don't want to stray too far from the design, the color palettes, and the materials that are being used. So let's go ahead and hide this. And we're going to go ahead and place that walls. So first I'll go into the catalog here. I'm going to go back to my watercolor cities. I'm just going to type in wall. There should be some wall pieces in here. I believe the one that was used was this one right here. Rough wall. I think that's it right there. Okay. And the way that I'm going to set this up is I'm going to sequester each section with walls. So the way that I'll set this up is I'm going to use the line tool for this. The line tool, I have that shape there. I'll probably have to change the scale of the stamp in just a moment. Let me make sure that I have, we're going to go ahead and start to create the next layer. So I'm going to go rename or add a new layer. Object layer. We're going to rename this as walls or city. You can put them all on one layer if you want, but let's go walls for now. I'm on this layer. When you're doing it, use the pen. This is going to be helpful. And we'll start at the bottom and move our way up. So I'm going to create walls that are going to go around the edge of the cliff here, creating some defenses for this lower level. Press enter. Now you have that walled segment. I think about 100% is fine. Let's turn that shadow off for right now. We'll do that next one. We're going to go ahead and go like this. Put the wall up against here. Just like this, all along this edge. And then we'll connect it right there. So now we have that section. Let's also put the wall here as well. Again, these are going to be setting our boundaries. There we go. This looks good. Okay, that one. And then we'll also put one here along this edge as well. So trying to get into this place is going to be difficult. You've got various tiers with wall defenses here. That's going to be really helpful. All right, from here, we're going to want to create a gatehouse in which people can get to each location. So we want to establish like, how do people get into this place? And what might be a good idea is to put a bridge that goes from right here to right here. I think that's a good start. Let's go ahead and do that because it's going to be hard to set everything else down without knowing where the entrance, where the exits are. So let's go there. We'll go back to the catalog with the line tool, and there should be a bridge. There should be some bridges that you can choose from. So just type in bridge. Oops, not sure I know how to spell bridge. There we go. There's a platform bridge here. the snow wooden bridges. You've got wide wooden bridges, lots of different bridges here. A wooden one. I think a stone one would probably work best here. So let's kind of go with that. And we're going to have to change the scale, but let's have a nice, really long bridge that just kind of spans all the way across there to there. All right, that looks good. All right, so now we kind of understand where that is. Let's also go ahead and place our fortified structures. So what I'll type is in fortified, and these should pop up here. Actually, if I think I type in castle, let's type in those pieces. There we go. Let's take a look here. These are the ones I'm looking for. These fortifications right here. These are perfect. We're going to use these to create our gatehouse. So I'll go up a layer, put that on top, just like this. There we go. Now I have a gatehouse. And we're probably going to have to change the scale a little bit. Let's bring that scale down. I'm just going to move the bridge a little bit this way so it's kind of hidden. Let's do that. Let's also put some towers on the side of that as well. So I'll put these up another layer, place these just right on top, just like this. And we'll worry about shadows and all of that stuff later. Now, if you want extra defenses, you can also have a barbican that could be in the center of the water. So there could be like a barbican that's on an island like this. We can go with our land tool like this. We're going to add, and we're going to put a little bit of land underneath like this. And this is going to act as like another form of defense. This is going to be like the barbican. So we'll do that as well. Let me go ahead and rotate this just a little bit, kind of get the right sizes. I think we should rotate it a little bit more like that. That looks good. Same thing here. There we go. That looks good. How do you switch through stamp variants? If you hold down the Alt key and use your mouse scroll wheel, you'll be able to scroll through. But remember, it's only if it's a stamp set. If it's just a regular stamp, single step, you won't be able to do that. But your Alt key, or whatever the key might be, I'm using a Windows keyboard on a Mac. Okay, so we also want to, if you want to have extra, because it's gmofreven said that it was kind of an epic city, why don't we add another scent of defense here? So we'll go ahead and place another barbican like right here. And in fact, what I'll do is I'll kind of remove this bit of terrain right here. There we go. That looks better. And then what I'll end up doing instead is I'll just copy and paste this, rotate, and then I'll create a little road that goes this way and then goes that way. So now we kind of have these triple defenses when you're kind of going in here. So this is going to be nicely defended. I'm going to go ahead and just take these same barbican pieces and just create another one. And I'm going to go put it on this side. And I'm going to show you just kind of exactly how I want to create this main kind of route here. I know we're not at the road section yet, but I want to give you an idea on how to set it up. And the way that I generally do this is I want the road to follow the terrain. Notice how there's a curve here in the terrain right here. So my roads are probably going to follow a curve like this. It doesn't have to be the closest one, like all along right here like this. I try to actually have the road be more in the middle so that there is room for things to be on both sides. And you can also create an alternate sneaky route that might go up this way for like nobility, so that way they're not taking the long route through. Or you can create some kind of path that leads down through here for a private dock that goes to the castle area. So it really just depends. But for the roads, I try to make them more central, so that way you can put districts on both sides of the road. But we'll go more into depth in just a little bit on that. Let's focus first on making all of our exits and entrances. Now, not every single barbican or every single gatehouse for each section has to be exactly the same. You could have varying types of gatehouses. Like maybe you want to have another one that looks more like this. It's up to you. Variety doesn't hurt. It just depends. I'm just going to go ahead and just copy and paste these and put another one up. Let's go ahead and move this one over to right here. I think that will look good right there. That's perfect. And then we can create maybe some switchbacks that will kind of lead up to this next section up here. And then we'll create some smaller barbicans. Let's first go ahead and create the walls for this section up here. We'll create some walls here. Oopsie, I'm using the wrong one. Let's use the shape tool for that. My mistake. There we go. Let's try that. Make sure that everything gets fortified. That looks good. And then another piece right here. And you can cut up sections if you want districts. Now, when you're making your districts, not every district has to be cut up by walls. That's up to you, but we'll go over that shortly. I think overall, we have a sense of continuity here about where it goes. You've got this barbican, go across the bridge, go through here. You're going to travel up through here to get to here, here, and then whatever else is up here. So I think overall, oopsie, I accidentally undid that part at the top there. My mistake. There we go. Okay. All right. I think, well, the only thing we need to do now is just create the rest of the defenses. So when you're putting together your wall towers, you want to put them in places where the wall is most vulnerable. Like maybe there's ships that are traveling through a river that connects to the lake, and they come through here. This is kind of more an exposed side right here. So it's always good to maybe place, we'll go ahead and turn off the random here, and just kind of place them along the wall like this to create these defenses. Wherever they're going to have the weakest points, you're going to want to have defenses. So we'll put them here. Let's actually create a little bit more space. Let's space them out here, here, and then we'll put one more right there. That looks good. Okay, so we have our defenses there. Let's put some defenses along here as well. Just going to space them out for now. That looks good. And then also up top here as well. So we'll go ahead and create some towers. There's already a tower there, so we don't have to put one there. Let's put one at the end. I think that's a good one. All the ends there. That looks good. There we go. That makes sense. Okay, same thing here. Let's go ahead and add in those walls. Let's put one there so it's facing down there, here, one at the end here, and one there. That's good. And then we'll put one here, and then maybe one right. Actually, let's put them on the ends. There we go. Let's take a step back and look at it. Okay, yeah, that looks good. All right. Walls and defenses are set up. That looks good. All right, let's go back over to our notes and our visuals. We're going to go check out our checklist here. So we went ahead and placed the walls. Now we need to decide a centerpiece. And the centerpiece can be any number of things, and you can have more than one centerpiece as well. A centerpiece is like a focal point in which, after the viewer's eye has traveled around the map looking at all these little things, it's going to come back to the focal point, right? So it's a place where the eye can rest when you're looking at a visual composition. So the centerpiece can be a number of things. It can be a cathedral. It could be a castle, a fortress, a palace. It could be a shrine. It could be a holy, massive tree, right? Whatever it might be, there's usually a focal point that the eye can go to. And it's going to really, the focal point will depend on the cultures, the traditions, the religions, the economy of the people that live in this city. Okay, so for instance, if it was a very religious culture, then you might have a temple, and then maybe some priest quarters at the very top, and then maybe a high priest lives in some mansion or something like that, whatever it might be. But your culture, the economics, all of those things, your politics are all going to play a role on what the centerpiece might be. I'm going to stick with something generic, for instance, like a castle, and I'll show you how to piece together a castle. So this should be kind of fun. Let's go ahead and turn off the checklist here. And the castle makes kind of sense. We're going to place it right here. It's a good place for a castle. Let me go back to my walls. And just like we created barbicans and gatehouses and towers, we're going to do the same thing here. We want to first create an entrance. How do the people get into the castle? And we can just choose something different besides these gatehouses just to distinguish it. So I'll just place one there, and I'm going to offset, do something different. Notice that all of these have a matching tower on both sides. What happens if I built one with just one tower on one side? That will break up that, make it a little bit more interesting. So I'll just put one tower right there. This is the entrance to get in. What about the keep? The keep is going to be that the most, it's going to be where the lord, the liege, wherever might live, the ruler, whatever it might be. And so we'll go ahead and create a couple pieces to piece together our keep. So this can be like the main part of the keep. And then we can create some other elements to the keep, like maybe we can piece together this right here. Let's go ahead and bring this up a layer to show that this is taller. We'll create some fortifications along here. Now the keep, where you place it is really going to determine the terrain around it. You notice that I'm putting the keep on this side where all this steep terrain is. That means that it's going to be much harder to siege this. If combatants were able to get up through here, they'd be able to attack the keep if it was on this side. But by moving the keep over to this side to a more defensible position, it makes more sense, right? So whatever you're placing a centerpiece, whether it's a castle or whatever, think about defensibility. Its position, where the terrain is, plays a large role where the keep is probably, or whatever your centerpiece is going to be. So I'll create this center part of the keep. We'll have another piece right here. And then I'll maybe extend the castle just a little bit more. I can maybe have the castle go outward like this. I'm going to push this down a layer and put it right there. And then I might want to create some other fortified sections as well along here. And those other fortified buildings might be the private infrastructure of the lord or liege that lives in that castle, right? Because they're going to need infrastructure, whether it's some crops, a small garden that's in there that's going to sustain them when the crop yields are low or not doing well, like a blight or something, or it might be basic infrastructure like having some military, a militia built up there. It might be your private blacksmith that makes all your armor or deals with whatever. That basic infrastructure is going to be in that castle area. So I'll put one fortified building here, and then I'll go ahead and add in my towers. So I'll put one right here in this fortified section and another one right there. And in fact, we'll create a third tower just to make it a little bit more interesting right there. And then I'll put whatever infrastructure this is going to be right here. Okay, let me just take a step back and look at it. That looks pretty good. We'll get to texturing shortly. First, let's just finish up our point of interest, and details can come in later. I just want to put in the main fortified parts in first before we start throwing in all the little details. Now there is another center point right here, and I'm thinking I'm going to use a cathedral or some kind of shrine for that. So if I type in church or shrine or whatever of my choice, I'm going to maybe choose one of these. So what I might want to consider doing is have it be this way, like this. And what I'll do here is let's see here. I'm going to go ahead and I think about that looks good. And in fact, I'm going to remove the wall section. We're not even going to add any walls. Let's go ahead and put that right about, let's move it this way. Let me just see here. Let me go back to terrain. I'm going to go ahead and rescale this up just a little bit. There we go, just to give me a little bit more room. You're going to have to do some editing. Go back to foreground. Oopsie, not foreground. Walls. Oops. Select this here. There we go. I might have to scale things down even more, but we'll see. Let me see how this works here. And then we can create a path that's going to go wind up here and then go right to here. So that should work out just fine. Okay. We got our temple there. Let me go back over to my visual notes here. My checklist. We've got our centerpiece or centerpieces added. Two of them is going to be that church. So a religious district, basically. And then you're going to have the castle as the centerpiece here. So that's going to work out. Hey, first time chatter, a bit of venom. I love when people call me that. That's so funny. I love Bob Ross so much. Bob Ross is amazing. Okay. All right. So the next step was to add in the main road. The main road is going to be the road that starts at the beginning of the gatehouse where the city starts, leading all the way up to the centerpiece. That's going to be your main road. It can be a thoroughway. It can be whatever it wants. So we'll go over that. So the way that I kind of do this at first is I'm just going to choose a lighter texture to act as the road. This is me personally, but I find that lighter textures work the most for roads instead of darker ones. So let's go ahead and pick a lighter color. This sandy ground right here works fine, or you can use this desert street plain, whichever one works best. I'm going to go with a kind of a more yellowish color. And you don't have to make it perfect because we can change the road system later, but let's just create the main route. So here's how I would start it is there's a route that goes here. Just make sure that you're set to your foreground layer. That's this where it says foreground layer. Here's the main route that's going to lead to here. I'm also going to have another route that's probably going to connect and go like this. So that will work out well. And then I'm going to have the route go through the center like this and then kind of make its way here. And then we're going to do the same thing here. Let's go ahead and have it go through the center and make it this way. Now, if you wanted to make it more defensible, you could do it this way, where you have the route kind of twist and turn like this. And it's doing that on purpose because if there's an invading army, they're going to have to do a lot more walking, and it's a much more easier place to do your ambushing an invading force, right? They're coming around these corners. It blocks the view. It blocks logistics, right? So if you want to have more defensibility, make your roads set up in a way that's going to make the invaders have to work harder, lose their advantage with logistics and what they can see and not see, have traps along the way. All of these things are going to be very, very helpful when doing that. Okay, so kind of important. And then in this last one, we'll go ahead and create a route that connects right here to the castle. So now we've connected the routes here, okay? All right. Now there's some things that you're going to notice here that you'll notice that my hill right here, you wouldn't see these lines in the hills right here on that terrain. So I'll show you a cool trick on how to make it look like you've got these switchbacks. Let me show you how I would do that. Let me go ahead and remove this right here. And there's a couple ways that you can do this. You can go over to your terrain and just go add a mask, this layer mask right here. And what a layer mask is going to do is going to allow you to erase stamps. You see how I'm kind of erasing things? You're able to erase stuff. So what I want to do here is I think I'm going to erase a path in which the people can walk up. So I'm going to go take this brush size right here. I'm going to go ahead and erase this section right here. Let's go bring that size up a little bit. Let's erase this section right here. Let's have a little switchback that goes down and then up through here. We're going to erase that. There we go. That looks good. Let's erase that section. Same thing here. Let's go ahead and erase some stuff. Let's go ahead and erase this right here. And we're going to create a switchback. It's going to go down, up, just like that. There we go. Okay. And now I can go back to my foreground layer. I can go ahead and paint all this away. And then I can go back. And then I can go ahead and paint in, oopsie, bring the opacity down just a little bit. Then I can go in and just kind of paint the switchbacks following going up the hillside there. So it's kind of important that you erase those sections because that way you can now create a path. And the way that you create the path is have it follow the contours of the hill itself. That's going to be super important, following the contour. So I'll go in here like this and then create that path that leads up through there. There we go. And I'll create a little bit more over these pieces like this. There we go. That looks good. Same thing here. I'll create a little bit more of that sandy color. There we go. It looks good. All right. Let's go ahead and just take a step back and just see how that main route has put together so we can kind of follow the route as it takes us across this long bridge and then takes us along here. And then it creates the switchbacks that go up through these hills. And you're going to have these loops for defenses. These turns here are going to be great statistically. And then another switchback that kind of goes up into this main section here. And then there's one more I'm noticing right here. And what I might do here is to make it more difficult for people to get up, I might create more of a slope that just goes straight down instead of follows the contour of the hill, maybe just to make it more difficult. So I'll go back to terrain, layer mask, and then I'll just go and kind of delete this whole thing right here. There we go. That looks good. Okay. And then I can go back to foreground. There we go. Let's go ahead and take a step back. All right. So I think the main route is done. So then we can go ahead and move on to that next step. So I'll go ahead and bring back my notes and we'll go back to my checklist. After you've created the main roads, you're going to create those districts. And districts is an interesting one. There's a lot of different ways that you can go about districts, but what really determines districts in your city is going to depend, again, on the same things we mentioned earlier: religion, culture, politics, economics. All of those things are going to play a role in what kind of districts that you're going to add on your map, okay? Now, I personally sometimes follow a formula. This is not the amount of districts that you can have, but these are the ones that I generally follow. Number one, the first one is going to be infrastructure. Without infrastructure, your city would fall apart, right? Without people repairing things, building things, sowing crops, all of those things require infrastructure. So it's going to be people like smiths, woodworkers, masonry, inns, shops, markets. All of those things are probably some of the most important things. Those are probably going to be the bedrock of most of your districts, okay? The second one is military. If you have a large city like this, you're going to need some kind of military discipline and a force to defend the city against attackers. So a military is going to be important. It could be also be the same people that are going to be the prefects. They're the ones going to be upholding the laws, right? So military or police or prefecture, those things are going to be mixed. Next, you're going to have your college, a university district, a college district. It could be a mage college. It could be whatever kind of college you want, a bard's college. It doesn't really matter. Just think about the lore and the culture of the world, of the city that you have. If it's a famous city for its wine and song and hospitality, maybe it has a bard's college. If it's in a wintry environment where it's cold and harsh, then maybe your college is a mage's college of some kind to help deal, or a warrior's college of some kind, where they go there to learn about warfare, to deal with the harsh terrain and all that stuff, right? Or whatever it might be. You can decide what kind of college it might be. I also try to include an entertainment district. People need to be entertained more than just going to work every day, more than just doing their daily labor. They need to be doing things in their free time to give themselves some R&R and relaxing. So an entertainment district of some kind, and that might include something like theaters. It might be gambling casinos. It might be horse tracks. It might be a gladiatorial stadium. It might be an amphitheater, right? Whatever it might be, I always try to factor in some kind of entertainment district to go in. And then fifth, this is going to be the largest of all of your districts, is residential. And there's a reason why I start with these specialized districts at the top instead of residential, because residential is going to be pretty plain. You're going to be using just single houses and blocks. There isn't going to be a whole lot of like focal points in a residential area, but you can add things into a residential area like a garden or a park. And I would generally add those in a district where the residential is maybe upper class or middle class, or if you don't have a class structure at all for your city, and that's perfectly fine too, then you would just add your gardens and everything everywhere. It wouldn't really matter. There would be things, people can enjoy nature regardless of their class in your city. So that's up to you. And then number 6, whatever other districts you can come up with, just kind of remember that key thing. It's the culture, religion, economics, the environment. All of those things are going to be playing a role on what kind of districts that you have. So now that I've kind of determined some of the districts that I have, I can now go ahead and start annotating where those districts are. And what's going to be important is that location will play an important role on where each district is. Okay, so it's kind of important there. So first we'll start with our basic infrastructure. And infrastructure should be balanced throughout each district. There should be areas of infrastructure in the lower level. There should be levels of infrastructure on the second level, and there should be infrastructure on that higher level. Okay, so that way each section is somewhat self-sustaining, but also works in tandem with the other sections of infrastructure in the city. So what I'll do here, I'll go ahead and hide this. If you go into the catalog, there are these something called specialty. Oopsie, I don't know how to spell specialty. Or maybe it's special. There it is. If you type in special, I'm going to go over to show names. You'll notice that you're going to find a lot of the special of the buildings that we're talking about with infrastructure are actually in the special category. So you have alchemists, breweries, carpenters, fisheries, herbalists, big inns, regular inns, jewelers, leatherworks. You see all that you're looking for your infrastructure is under one simple search, special. And you're going to find a lot of that here. So I mentioned that there's going to be things like carpenters for setting up for woodworks. There's going to be masons. All of those things are going to be in there. There's also going to have inns and things like that. So we'll start at the entrance and then kind of move our way along the path upward as we go into here. Now I've noticed that my scale is a little off at 80%. So what I'll do is I'm going to change the scale a little bit, because if I look at one building like the size of this inn, it's quite huge, right? So I'm going to have to end up changing my scale a little bit, and that's okay. So what I'll do is I'll just take my temple, I'll bring the scale down a little bit to fit. I'm going to leave the castle at this size because I feel that it's okay to have it that big. I want the castle to be more epic. Just know that when you are having drastic scale sizes, just make sure that they're not way exaggerated like this. Notice that when you zoom in like this or scale it up, you'll notice that the line work is very thick. So just kind of keep in mind that you don't want discrepancies in the scale to be night and day, like this and like this, right? Or like this and like this. So it's kind of important to kind of keep that in mind. You can deviate that has some cushion, but don't have such a large one, such a large divide or differential that it becomes so obvious and it doesn't look correct. So just kind of keep that in mind when you're putting it together. I put this at about 60. I think that should be the right size. We can always scale down if we need to. This will also create some room for some housing and infrastructure up here as well. That'll work good. Let's go ahead and select. I think these are going to be fine. Let's leave that there. Let's go ahead and add in our, and this is about 50%. That's fine. Let's go with that. So when you first enter into a city, there's a couple things that are going to be important. One, I would add in some kind of military or prefect district that can help to guard the gatehouse, right? It'd be weird if the militia group or the defenders had their military base way over here, because then they'd have to travel all the way over here to quickly defend the wall. But if you have the military district right here in the first section of the thing, then they have quick access to the gate for defensive purposes. So why don't we create a military district right in here? And just as an extra sense of defense, why don't we add another wall segment just to add that extra sense of defenses? So I'll create maybe a wall that kind of goes like this. There's our wall segment. And this is going to break up the right here. It's going to serve a couple purposes. One, it's going to, if the attackers get in, it's going to isolate them within this small wall segment right here, so that way the military units can also kind of trap any defenders. Think of this as kind of like a murder hole or a trap area where all these towers right here can just rain in attacks into this little small space right here. So let's make sure to do that. We also want to make sure that we have some kind of fortified building right here. So we can maybe put a little fortified building like right there on top, just like that. There we go. Now that we've kind of sequestered that area, why don't we throw in military buildings? And you can use whatever kind of buildings that you want. I think these fortified buildings work fine. So let's go with these. About 50%. And the way that I'll set this up is I want to have a couple things in my military district. One, I want to have where the commander lives, where the officers live, and then where the soldiery lives. They're all going to be separated from each other. So my first one, I'll try to find a larger kind of structure that will work as where the commandant or commander lives. Maybe this is where the officers' barracks are. And then what we'll end up doing is we'll go ahead and use a non-fortified for our soldiery. I'll just choose regular houses or tents. For this, let's go ahead and use these small red buildings to work just fine. Yeah, there's a lot of thought that goes into these, right? So I'll go ahead and just kind of create a series of the same buildings. Let's check through here. Let's use these ones right here. These look good. I'm just going to use the same building like this. I'm going to go ahead and place these together like this. And when it comes to the soldiery, there's probably going to be a fair amount of them, right? You're going to have a couple. Let's also have ones, this could be cavalry or archers or foot soldiers, and then we'll have another group right here for lesser officers, and then we'll add another group right here like this. There we go. And I'm going to go ahead and go, what is really nice to do when you're working on a city is that you don't have to follow each step to the T. Sometimes it's nice to move to the next step within a sequestered district, right? So now that I've kind of put that together, I can go in and start creating those mini roads. If you'll notice carefully in my notes here, that in the checklist, you'll notice that the next step is that you're creating branching roads. I'm going to go ahead and show that right away in here without having to do that in one whole section. I'll go back to my foreground layer here, and let's just go ahead and create the branching route. So you would expect the route to kind of go into here like this, go in here like this, kind of creating these branching routes. Little route that maybe goes to here. Same thing here. Let's make a route that goes in through here, kind of connects through here. Let's also have a route that kind of goes right here. So that way there's a route to that tower right there, a route to this tower right here, a route to this tower, a route to that tower. So now you have access points, right? You have the main route, and then all these other routes that lead to the important parts of this district, like the route that leads to the towers and all these defensible positions. That's going to be super important, okay? Looks like our stream's going to go over an hour. And I'm okay with that because Rome was not built in a day, right? The other part that we might want to create is a training ground, maybe a small sparring ground for soldiers to practice. Why don't we line that up by creating just a little square right here? And we're gonna play more with roads later, but for now, let's just kind of get the basics set up. So we'll create a little square right here. That's going to act as like a training ground or a place where soldiers can mobilize, create ranks, and then they can go out to defend the bridge, right? Because your soldiery is going to need space for them to assemble, right? They can't assemble on a tight road, so they need an open space for troops to assemble, then mobilize, and then go to that route there. So that's going to be important. There's going to be our mobilize section there. And then from there, we can also, I'm just going to add just some quick details. Here's another step. I'm going to jump ahead again and add just a couple details in here just to show you. So that way, if we want, we can make this a part 2. Let's go in here. I'm going to choose a fence. Here's our fencing right here. I'm going to go back to my wall section here. And I'm going to go ahead and create a section here. Let's go ahead and change the stroke size. About that size looks good. And we're going to go ahead and fence in that sequestered area like this. Let's maybe bring the scale down a little bit more. There we go. That looks good. And then we need to create the entrances to that sequestered area by using the portal tool. That's this right here. It says portals. And we're going to create a couple portals. Let's put a portal that goes, oopsie, my mistake. Let's create a portal that goes into here. Another portal that goes right to here. There we go. And if we take a step back, you notice that there's a little section there for mobilizing troops. So that works out great. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and show you this. The other thing that you can do here, what I generally try to do is I'll try to fill out one district, like from beginning to end. And the reason why is because then it will tell me the level of detail that I need to do for each section. So in other words, the first district you create maybe flush it out completely so that you can give it as a reference point, like, okay, I need to add this many details in this district, just like I did with the other districts. So it's a good little practice thing. So once you've added in the main structures, and I generally recommend that you add the largest stamps first. That's why I added these large buildings first, and then the medium-sized buildings, and then small, and then tiny. So for every district, there's probably going to be what's called auxiliary or secondary buildings. Those are going to be things like shacks, tool sheds, places for servants to live, or where squires might be, or where there might be supplies like weapons, things like that. You're always going to have little shacks. They're going to represent that. So what we'll do is we're going to type in shack. Should be in here. These little shacks right here are very, very helpful. Okay, now where you place them is not complex. They need to be wherever the main structures are. So what I'll do is I'll just go to place them in both open areas, like these right here might be where the squires live if you have knights, or it might be where you might have people who do military logistics. It might be where weapons are. It could be any of the above, right? Same thing here. Why don't we put a little structure inside of here in this corner here? Maybe this is where the weapons are stored for the training ground for mobilization. Let's go ahead and add some more things. Let's add one here, here, and here. And we're just going to add them here and everywhere that we can. So along here would be good. I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste this, copy, paste. And it's okay to use repeating ones. I think it's actually okay to do that. Let's go ahead and create another one. Kind of a shack along that road there. I see there's some nice spaces here. Why don't we create some shacks along here? Here, that looks good. Looks good. Let's put another one right here. This looks good. And then we'll put another one like right there. That looks good. Oh, let's go ahead and place a couple more. This is where the gatehouse is. Let's go ahead and let's create some room here. Put that there. Let me just take a step back. Yeah, that looks good. Okay. Now, this is also plays into that iron rule of contrast. Remember, I mentioned that rule of contrast, big versus small, right? If you have a variety of different sizes of stamps, it's going to contrast a little bit better. So now that I've added my medium-sized shacks, I can start adding in those little details like crates and barrels. Schrates. I don't know if you know what schrates are, but they work. Here we go. So that's some crates and barrels here. And if you're wondering where crates and barrels go, they're probably going to be alongside of buildings, along roads, and along those shacks that you put down. So maybe I want to put some crates and barrels right there. Maybe I want to create some right here, along here. Let's maybe have some mixed ones along here like this. And we'll go ahead and change the shadows and everything later. For now, let's just kind of put these together. So put some there. Let's also put some, let's put some in the corner. Let's kitty corner here a little bit just to make it look a little more interesting. Remember, we talked about contrast. Here's a diagonal. Here's more of the 90. That's going to contrast against there, so that should look nicer. Let's go ahead and throw a little bit more crates and barrels in here. Put them in those corners. Good places to have them. Same thing here. Let's go ahead and put some crates and barrels in here. Put some along here. Don't forget to rotate them. Don't all have them be exactly square. Rotating just a little bit. Remember, just like I said, kitty cornering them like that can make it look more interesting. I know the shadows look a little off. We're going to get to that later. Don't worry about that. The focus is just to get in this district. There we go. That looks good. So we kind of have that. Let's go ahead and add in a couple more items. Smaller stuff here, 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 here. There we go. All of this stuff could be weapons. It could be for storing goods, whatever it might be. But you notice how it kind of came together, right? Yeah, the shadows are weird, and we're totally going to fix them. Are they set to layer? Perfect. That's great, because now we can go ahead and just play with our layer right here. I'm going to go mess with my layer. I'm going to go ahead and bring that blur down. I'm going to center the blur. Let's go ahead and bring that intensity up. There we go. There we go. All right. Make that shadow a little bit darker color. There we go. Okay. Now that I've set that to the layer, that means every stamp will follow that. Just to kind of something easier to deal with. All right, let's go ahead and quickly review what we did here. We went ahead and put in the most important and the biggest stamps first. That means the commander or commandant's quarters. Next comes the officer's quarters. Then we added in all the foot soldiers and their herons, what is called barracks. And then we also included shacks. And then we added in the smallest details, such as your crates, barrels, things like that. Overall, this is a pretty good start. Probably could add more details in here, but I think this looks pretty dang good. So I'll go ahead and just take a step back and look at it. So our military district, prefecture, whatever it might be, that's that first step. Kind of makes sense because it's closest to the gate. Let's kind of move our way into that next section there. And in fact, let me go back over to my notes and we'll go ahead and check those districts. We don't necessarily have to go in that particular order. Where did my districts go? Oop, did that disappear? Did my districts vanish? Where did they go? Oh, never mind, my mistake. There we go. There we go. Go back to my districts. All right, infrastructure, military college, check. We kind of already did military, so let's go ahead and do maybe a college. And instead of moving our way up like we were doing before, let's just go somewhere else just to kind of break it up and do something different, right? It's always nice to step away. Sometimes you get bored of what you're doing, and it's nice to just move on to something else so that you're not losing interest, because believe me, you can lose interest in what you're working on. If that happens, you're getting bored with it, you're not doing well with whatever district you're working on, work on another one. So why don't we create some kind of academy of some kind, a district like that. So why don't we go build it up here in this highest level? I think we could put like maybe an academy right in this section right here. That will look good. So I'll go back to my wall and we'll go ahead and type in school or college. There should be a college in there. Let me just double check. Let me try school. I think maybe it's under academy. Let me check. Nope. It is not. I don't remember where it is actually. Oh, I think it's university. Is that it? Ah, yeah, there we go. Here's our university right here. That's perfect. Let's make sure we use the right scale. I think it was set to 50. That works great. This is a good location for it. It's just right here. Good location for it. Remember, you always place that largest building first. This is going to be the biggest building, so it's the perfect one. Also keep in mind where the stairs and entrances are when you're placing the stamp. Notice that there's a staircase right here and a staircase in the back. This is probably a good location right here for that stair because that can be the entrance. We'll place that there. Next, you're going to place your infrastructure on top of it, right? This is just the school, but what about where do the students live? Where do the faculty live? Where are the other buildings that store supplies or that might be like a hall? Where are all the other structures that are going to support? Because the college isn't by itself. Anyone who's been on a university campus knows that it's a verifiable village, right? It has food, it has places for people to stay, it has businesses, all of those things. So you want to have that as well when you're doing your district. So I'll go in and just maybe instead, what I'll do is I'll just throw in some blocks so that it will fill up more of the space, because if you use individual buildings, it's going to take you a lot longer to fill in the space. So using these blocks right here are a great way to do that without having to do all this extra work. So what I might want to consider doing is maybe just creating some blocks over here. And I like to use these angled blocks, because these angled blocks allow you to kind of fit and match things. So I can kind of create some interesting kind of shapes by using these various, like this. You get some interesting shapes. So what this might be over here, this might be where, like this block right here might be a commons. This one right might be where faculty stays. This might be where students live. This might be whatever, where maybe I'm not sure. It could be anything really, but all of those different things. But the way that I would fill up the district after you put the central piece in, like this district here, or this university is to throw in the bigger blocks, and then you can use the smaller blocks to fill in the spaces where it doesn't fit stuff. So that's generally how I get this to go. So in other words, you see I don't have any more room to put the bigger blocks, then go ahead and place those smaller buildings in between, just like this. And now it's so much easier for you to kind of place these together, make some room here. And this is going to be really important. I want to mention this. It's always good to have some negative space. And by negative space, I mean an open space where there is no buildings. Negative space can be a pond, a small park, it could be a garden, any of those things. And a university is not a bad place for that. If you've been on any university, you notice that there are some beautiful greenery. It looks like its own village, right? It has beautiful aesthetics to it. So what we might want to consider doing is having some negative spaces in which it can contrast. Remember that iron rule of contrast against the positive spaces. A positive space wherever there's a building, a negative space wherever there is no building. So now that we know about that positive and negative thing, let's restructure our block so that we've kept that in mind. So what I might want to consider doing then is creating a negative space right before we get to the main campus here. So what I might want to consider doing is placing one right here like this. It's going to fit in that space. Let's put another one right here that's going to fit in this space. Let's move this one over. We'll fit this into this space. Let me move this out of the way. And you notice that I'm creating this open space right here. Notice as I kind of place more and more stamps here, I'm kind of creating this kind of open space. There we go. There we go. So then this could be like a courtyard. This could be, there could be a fountain in here where students can study, all of those things, right? This is this open space in the center. That's going to be super important. Let's create some auxiliary buildings along the edges to kind of fill up these negative spaces that we've got here. Like this. That looks good. Let's go ahead and create some more buildings right in this little negative space here. Let's create one right there. That looks good there. There. That looks good. Let's go place some more along here like this. Our negative space is getting smaller, and that's okay. As long as there's some negative space there. That looks good. And let's go create our main thoroughway that's going to be a part of this district. So a couple routes we could choose from. Right from the gatehouse, it just goes right into here like that. But if you want to go also from the castle to the district, you could go ahead and create a route that just goes right in here like that. If you wanted to go to the temple district, maybe there's a route that connects right here like this. And it's going to go up to the temple district. Up into here like that. Okay? So creating those main thoroughways are helpful. Just going from one district to the other, to the gatehouse, to the castle, to this district here. And then I can go ahead and just kind of fill in this whole space right here. This is going to be kind of a courtyard space. There we go. Don't worry about the different opacities for now. We'll go fix that all later. Right now we create these subpaths. Let's also create some paths that go into each section here. Into here. There we go. Excuse me, that looks good. Let's also create the path that kind of leads into here, and then a path that goes around through here and then goes around the entire university. That looks good. We'll go and just fill in that space there. Fill in this space here as well. And now you see I have this open space. Let's go ahead and remove this piece right here. It kind of throws it off a little bit, so we'll change that. Let's go ahead and move this over to here. I think would look better there. And this one might look better over here. There we go. That looks good. And then I'll create those branching routes as well that go right here. There we go. That looks good. Okay. And these are all subject to change. It's okay if you want to change your roads. I just kind of fit them in. And I find that roads are a little bit, the branching roads are easier to put together when you already have the blocks put down. because otherwise it's kind of hard to figure out where each road is going to be. Coming up with a unique design for the roads in each district is challenging. If you already have the blocks, the stamps there, it's easier to decide which way the roads will go. I know other people prefer to draw the road system first and then put everything down. That works fine, but I find it's easier for me personally when the stamps are already put down. Then I can decide where each thing is going. This is just something that works for me personally. All right, let's go type in our fountain. Remember, what was important is to have a negative space. Here, right there. Let's talk more about contrasts, right? We've already done some contrasting here by creating negative and positive space to contrast against each other. What about nature versus structures, right? Nature is going to contrast against a made settlement or a structure. So let's put some trees down or bushes. And it kind of makes sense because in a university, you do see a lot of trees and bushes. It kind of gives it a welcoming kind of look to it. So why don't we throw down some trees? I'm going to bring them up a layer. Remember, a tree is going to be taller than most buildings. So we'll go ahead and make sure that that's up. And what I might want to consider doing is kind of enclosing this section right here with some trees. So I'll put some trees in here. Let me undo that real quick. Let me set it to random and random rotation. And I'm just going to place the trees. Oh, it's a little too big. That one. That one. You know what? Let's go ahead and turn the random off. And we'll stick with the smaller ones. There, there, there. I think that looks fairly good. This is going to, what it's going to do is it's kind of going to kind of frame this area a little bit. Let's go ahead and remove that one and just put it like that. That looks a little better. Make sure that it kind of goes around a little bit better. Let's go this way, a little bit more centered. There we go. Okay. So having some trees is nice. You can create an entire forested area as well. Like you can create some trees all along in here like this, all along the wall. And it's okay if trees are along this wall because look how much attackers have to go up to get to this area. So trees won't be a problem. Let's also put some trees along here as well. That looks good. And then what also looks nice is to line your roads with either hedges or bushes. All of those work really, really well in my opinion. So let's go do that. We'll just type in bush. Oops. All right, we'll probably go until for another 20 or 30 minutes or so. I don't want to get in the way of ink and drink. Okay, we'll bring the scale down to fit the size. And the way that I put this together, this is something you shouldn't do. Don't do this because it kind of, look how they're kind of spaced out kind of evenly. You don't want that. Instead, what you want is to maybe have a couple here and there, like this. That's going to make it look a little bit more interesting when you kind of don't line the whole thing with a straight line. And so what I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and just line all of my roads with these bushes right here. Again, it's going to kind of, it's what that will do is it will kind of frame the roads, causing them to kind of stick out a little bit more. And just all along these road systems, I'll add these bushes. And then when I'm done, we'll take a step back and you'll notice how much it helps to kind of frame those roads. Okay, make sure that that is right. Let's go ahead and put this higher up than those bushes. Let me take a step back. Now you see what it did? Those bushes right there kind of line the road, making them look a little bit more interesting. There we go. Let's go do this too. Oopsie, the wrong one. My mistake. We'll go and line these as well. That looks good. Okay. All right, let me just take a step back. I always like to take a little closer look to make sure things look good. That looks right. Okay. And in those open spaces, you can do a lot of different things. You can do a lot of different things. Like this open space right here, you can create like a little, maybe a little pond or a little lake, right? So maybe I want to create a little pond that kind of goes like this, kind of this kidney bean shaped kind of pond right here. where maybe students want to go to sit by a bench or something, read a book, whatever it might be. Whenever you have these negative spaces like this, you can use them for multiple things. Like a little lake or a little pond is not a bad idea. Like I like that pond there. Why don't we add another one just to kind of give it a little bit more interesting shape to it? And it doesn't have to be the exact same shape as the other pond. So we'll add that there. So now we have some nice little pond there. There we go. That looks good. Wherever you see those negative spaces, that is where you can put some unique and interesting things. Park benches, street lamps, markets, whatever it might be. All of those things are really, really helpful. We'll take a step back and see what that water did there. Remember that rule of contrast, water and land. So that works out rather well. And we can continue on that water bit. Maybe we want to have this fountain be a little bit larger. Maybe you're not happy with the way that maybe it's on a platform of some kind. So why don't we go over to Elven? Right here, you see these flat buildings right here? We can use these right here as a piece to put the fountain. Then we'll scale the fountain size down a little bit. It's a little too big. There we go. And now we have this other piece where you can go up this section right here and go to the fountain. And then we might want to put some benches. I'm not sure how to spell bench here. Up. Type in bench. There we go. We'll go up a layer. And then I'm just going to place some benches. Oopsie, that's facing the wrong way. Let's scale up so I can kind of see it better. Turn off random rotate. There we can see it a little better. Make sure it's facing the right way. There we go. And then I'll just go ahead and put some benches along here like this. There you go. And now people can kind of study. What might also look good is maybe putting a bush along each bench. Might not be a bad idea. That should probably make it a little bit more interesting. Add some details. There we go. Now I can take a step back. And now that district is slowly kind of coming to life by adding the bushes, adding the contrast with water and land, adding the contrast with big and small, adding contrast with by creating negative and positive spaces. All of these things. Remember, that's just that ironclad rule. If you want your map to pop out, if you want it to look more interesting, always remember those rules of contrast. That's going to make your composition so much more interesting than if you don't have clashing elements contrasting against each other. It's kind of just an important thing as an artist or just as a city builder or any kind of map maker in general, okay? I think what I'll do is I'll add in the last bit of buildings and then we'll call it good, and we'll do a part 2 because city building is something that requires time. Remember, Rome wasn't built in a day. So we'll definitely do a part 2 for this. We could probably finish it in a part 2. There's a lot going on here, but I'll go ahead and add those last bit of outbuildings in this district, and then we'll call it good for now. This has been a lot of fun. City building is time consuming, but by following a particular, following a checklist and a guide like that will be very, very helpful. Let me make sure that I got my scale right. About that looks good. Okay, then I'll go back over here and add in those little outhouses and those little buildings, right? So some small ones there. Let's put some smaller ones here. These might be the groundskeepers. It might be servants, whatever it might be. Let's put another one just like right here. And that negative space. I see some negative space over here. Let's go put a couple in this negative space. One right there. Let's go put one in here. Like that. That looks good. I see some negative spaces here. Let's go ahead and create a couple of those. Let's go put a couple in here as well. Oh, along the wall here should be good. That looks good. Okay. What doesn't hurt to also do is if you see a block that has a little courtyard inside of it, notice this right here, this block has a courtyard, and other blocks have kind of a courtyard, an opening in it. Use those to your advantage. Decorate those with interesting things. Let me give you an example. So I want to go ahead and create my road that goes into this little courtyard right here. You can decorate these things with a well, with benches, with a whole bunch of things. It's just a little extra detail. So maybe I can fit a little well right in that piece there. Or if I want, there's another open space over here, I can put some benches, right? Maybe there's a bench right there and a bench right here. Maybe there's some, maybe it's a little courtyard. We'll put a little bush in the center there, right? So you can always do those kind of things to make it more interesting. These negative spaces, see this stamp right here already used the negative space by putting a fountain or a well inside of it. So if you have a city block that has that negative space, use that. Let me go over some blocks real quick. You can kind of see what I'm talking about. There are other blocks that have much larger openings like these ones. See here how there's some open spaces inside of these blocks? Just look at that big open space. You can do a lot inside of that space. Same thing here. There's a little bit of room there. You can put stuff in there. This one right here, lots of negative space. Put things inside of those spaces because it's really going to help quite a bit to make it look more interesting. So just kind of keep that in mind when you are putting your district together. Okay, well, we're getting close. Where are we at? The time 42. All right.